Hey everybody, my name's David. I want to show you how to make this paracord bracelet. I've been seeing these a lot online. Thought I'd give it a shot on my own and see how we do. I'm going to start with this buckle. We end up with about roughly 20 feet of paracord, and my bracelet is about 8 inches from end to end, not including the overlap that you get with a parachute buckle. So stay tuned and we'll show you how to make this bracelet starting with step 1. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to know is your wrist size. I measured my wrist. It's 7.5 inches all the way around, but I want a little extra so that it's not too tight to work and it's not so loose that it's going to fall off. So I'm going with the length of your wrist plus enough to get 4 fingers under there without too much trouble. This way it won't be too tight, it won't be too loose, it should be just fine. The second thing you're going to need to do is attach your line to your buckle or your clip or however you're going to attach this. I've just used a pretty simple little cinching knot right here. So I can run my line back and forth between my 2 buckles. Let me just tighten that up a bit. Alright, so cinching knot, something to secure it to one end of your system, and then run it back and forth twice so you get 4 working lines around where this will form our core, and so we're going to form our bracelet around these 4 lines. These will be our core, so that no matter how much line you take off this bracelet, it'll always be this long, right? So the way to get started is to start making loops. We're pretty much making a system of interlocking loops like a daisy chain. If you know how to do finger crochet, this is going to come pretty simple. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is take a loop and come from under the bracelet and bring up a loop this way. Alright, and hold it there. And then we're going to take the working end and thread it through that loop and cinch it down. Just like that. So that's our first loop. Alright, that one technically came from the back, so this one's going to technically come from the front, and it's going to go over the top of the bracelet, back, underneath. Now we're going to take the working end through that one. And this is pretty much a system of, like I said, interlocking loops, but they alternate front and back, front and back, front and back, front and back. And if you keep them tight, and you pay attention to what you're doing while you're cinching them up, this will make a really nice little pattern for your bracelet. Alright, so that one came under the back, this one's going to go over the top. And we'll feed a loop through there and tighten it down. And each one, we keep it tight, we pull it, cinch it up, and then slide it towards your starting end. Right? So we keep alternating this pattern in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, and you're going to end up with loops that look like this. I'll run a few stitches and then come back and show you how it works, so stay with me. Okay, so this is about 20 stitches. I'm a little less than halfway across. And I'm not sure if the camera will pick this up, but if you'll notice, they go just back and forth, these alternating loops along the top. The great thing about this bracelet is that once it's complete, it'll be nice and thick, it'll be sturdy, but you'll be able to continue to wear it and pull off as much line as you need without having to take it off and unravel the whole thing, like I've seen with some of the ones that have a cobra stitch or a cobra knot, or some of them that are woven together in and out of the fabric like they should be. So I'll finish this up, this first row, and we'll get over to the end and I'll show you how to turn it around and come back the other way. Stay with me. Okay, so here's what we've got now. We're almost all the way across. We've just got a little bit left at this end to finish up. So what I wanted to touch on was, when you get over this way as far as you can go, you can, without cutting the line, loop back the other way and start covering. Use this now as your core, just like the King Cobra stitch, and do this same stitch back the other way. I started with about 15 feet, so I'm going to be able to get to my end and then maybe make another 2 or 3 inches. But the great part about this is the more you think you might need, the more you can start with, and it just keeps going and going and going until you can get, you know, a rope that's several inches thick if you had to. So like I said, I started with about 15 feet for 7.5 inch wrist, and I'm gonna have a little more than enough to go one way, it looks like. So stay with me. We'll get right back to it. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So now I've gotten all the way down to the end, and I've started to come back a couple inches, and I'm really running out of line here. This started with 15 feet, so this will give you about as much idea as you might end up with if you weave your knots really tightly. A note on the knots is that when you keep them tight, you can fit a lot of line on here and take a lot with you, but you end up sacrificing some of your flexibility. Some of these, when I weave really tightly, you know, they're not flexible. They're not gonna flop right over your wrist like you might like them. Conversely, if you weave loosely, you regain that flexibility, but you won't be able to pack as much on in such a small amount of time. So decide what's best for you and take with you what you need. So when you get down to this last stitch and you're really out of line and you can't do anything else, then you just feed it back through itself with the end and pull it tight to cinch it off, right? So when you wear it, you can just tuck that bit under, right? You have this little tail, but you just tuck it under, right? And that will be the tail that you pull when you need something. When you need some line, you know you're in need, you loosen up that last stitch that you got, take your end and peel off as much as you need. And you can still wear it and still peel it as much as you have to. You never have to take it off, and you get as much line as you need. So I've just pulled about maybe 2.5 feet off and without taking it off. So that's what we got going. Okay, so what I've done here is I've fused on about 7.5 more feet or so. Here's my fuse point right here. I just wanted to do this so that I could show you what it looks like when you go a second row. This is our first set of stitches that became our core, right? And then when we got to the other end, we just started going the other direction. So our core becomes our, our stitches become our core. And you can keep going back and forth like that the whole way if you like. When you come to the end, when you're running out of line, make like you're doing your next stitch, but instead of putting a loop through the end, we're going to put the end through the loop. Right? Pull that tight. You got yourself a bracelet. Anytime you need to draw some off, you loosen that last loop, you pull on your end, and you can draw off as much as you need. Hope you guys find this helpful. I appreciate your support. Don't forget to leave me some comments at the bottom. Tell me what you did differently. Tell me what you did better. Tell me what you did worse. I'd love to hear from anybody. So that's it for today. Hope this helps. Thanks and happy trails.